Thanks so much for watching AM Northwest this morning. You know, you never get a second chance to make a good first impression. Here to share how to stand out in all the right ways, please welcome back the author of Your Clothes Speak, image consultant Parker Walsh. Good to see you again.
You too. Good to be here.
So you say it only takes less than a second, basically, to make a first impression.
It really does. You know, in fact, it's very instinctual. It's something that we've developed through history that, you know, it's really a safety thing. You know, we have this thing about fight, flight, or freeze, right? That happens, you know, Binion's model. And so what we do is when we take people in visually, and our visual cues start first, we determine whether or not a situation is safe enough to engage further in. So if you're an entrepreneur or professional or business owner, it's really important that you make that great first impression to see if someone says, you know what, I want to engage with this person a little bit more.
Right.
Yeah.
What is the definition of impression, like first impression, essentially?
Well, it's really a remembrance of a person, right? It's really understanding.
Because you walk away after first impression, you walk away with that forever in your head.
Absolutely, you do. And actually, studies have shown that once an impression is made, even though the verbals may come later, right, that we only look for information to validate that first impression, not really to change it, right? So, you know, you think about, I think we just had this whole thing about The Bachelorette, right?
Yeah, The Bachelorette, yep.
And I think there was something I read, because I don't really watch the show, but something I read that said that the last few are with the person they gave the first impression rose to, right? And so it's something about that, just that first impression that sticks with you, and no matter what happens or any other information that comes to either the contrary, to either support it or against it, it still sticks and stands there with you.
So talk about the fundamentals of first impression. The first is image.
Yes, the first is your image. Appearance is key in terms of your first impression, because we first see before we hear. And really, only 7% of our communication is what we actually say, and the rest of it is in our nonverbals and what people are actually taking in. So the thing about having an image that represents who you are, dressing in a way that's more comfortable, that makes you feel confident, and is really representing your best authentic self, will allow you to be able to make that great impression for people to really know who you are and want to determine whether or not they want to continue to engage with you.
And then your behavior.
Yes, behavior is key, and behavior is really all about approachability, right? So whether or not you're closed off or whether you're interesting. And this is where, after the visual cues, if we take you in, then this is where you need to bring in the actual nonverbals to make sure that you're making that connection. So whether or not you're closed off, you know, are your arms crossed or are they down to the side? Are you actually engaging with the individual, you know,
looking them in the eye.
Looking them in the eye, making eye contact with them, as opposed to, you know, looking away or feigning interest or things of that nature. So that's, are you approachable and make people want to really come in and be in that space with you?
And communicating.
Yes, absolutely. As I said, communication is really key. You know, 7% of what we say, but, you know, more than that in terms of nonverbals. You know, 30% is tonality and 55% are your nonverbals in terms of what we're going to take in. So, you know, how are you dominating the conversation, right? Are you...
you know, often I hear about first dates with younger people, and how the guys will often go on and on and on about themselves and never ask a question, and then they wonder why there's no second date.
Exactly. So really engage in active listening, and being able to bring people into the conversation as opposed to making it all about you or what you've done and how wonderful and great you are, because people can actually pick up on that, right? Or whether or not you're communicating an inferior energy of you feeling like you need to overcompensate or prove that, you know, you're better than, you know, the other person that you're talking to or engaging with.
Isn't there something like a presence that someone has?
Absolutely. You know, presence is all about space and energy, right? And, you know, if you read Amy Cuddy's work, she talks about the power stand, and men statistically tend to take up space when they're in a room or in a situation, and
or
women
in an airplane seat,
or in an airplane seat, or
that
on a date,
spread
or something.
Thing they do.
Exactly.
They take up all the room.
They have to have, you know, everything open to themselves. You know, I think it's just a part of their you know, DNA. But women tend not to take up space. So, you know, how do you take up that space and command it, but not be dominant, you know, and not push people off, but still be welcoming in that, and also have to really a positive, energetic energy that you're really inviting people in, that you're not sharing all your woes and all your troubles and everything personal about you upon the first meet.
Too much information.
TMI, too much information. And that is something that may be a turnoff and really ruin that first impression.
You also have a first impressions change depending on where you live.
Absolutely. So all of these tips that I'm sharing, these 4 fundamentals are really culturally based in the U.S. You know, if you're dealing on a global stage or international stage, you have to take into consideration cultural norms. You know, for example, how people pass business cards is very very different in other countries than how we do it here. What different symbols mean of, thumbs up or okay means something very different. Whether or not you do make eye contact, with someone of authority or someone who's not in the same level of authority with you will make a difference in a different cultural setting than it would here. So what I'm sharing, I just want to be clear that it's very much based in an American cultural perspective. And if you're dealing on a global or international stage, you want to understand what the international and global etiquette is before you engage and what will make a great first impression later.
And if you travel, around the world, then if you're male or female, that's different too.
It's very different. It's very different. How people may take you putting your hand on a shoulder, the shoulder area is a nonverbal communication considered like the chest area for a woman.
No way.
So so an open palm hand on the shoulder could be taken as, mostly if you see men do this, if they don't know you, you see women kind of shrink away from it because it's a very personal and intimate touch. And so you have to think about all of that when you're engaging in these kind of communicative behaviors.
Carol, fascinating. The book again is titled Your Clothes Speak. Carol Parker Walsh, thank you so much.